Hey guys, it's Kim here with Fairily Fiber Fun. Thanks for joining me on another carding video. Today we are carding up some what I call gray Jacob. So it's got some very light colors and some sort of dark colors in it. I had about 10 bats, 8 to 10 bats that I took and separated by color, and I thought I would show you how I blend a bunch of bats to be pretty much identical. But before we get started, would like to give a very warm welcome to new viewers and a welcome back to returning viewers. If you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss new videos as they come out. And if you enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment and share this video with your friends that may enjoy it as well. So first of all, what I did before carding was I flicked every single lock because there were brittle tips and there was a lot of edge matter. And flicking the locks is a lot of work, but it does prepare the fiber very nicely. Now you don't have to card after you flicked, but I wanted to because I wanted a bunch of bats. So I take all the flicked locks and I open them up. I'll take a few at a time. I open them up and put them through the drum carder nice and slow, trying not to let the liquor keep the fiber. The liquor is the smaller drum that is clean right now. It takes the fiber and from underneath and transfers it slowly onto the big drum. The big drum turns very fast while the small drum turns very slowly. This is what causes the fibers to open up and card smoothly. Now with a prep like this, one time through the drum carder is all that's needed. And you can see the stripes of color on the big drum. It's really pretty, and I wanted with everything in me to leave it just like that and not do anything else. But this is for a big sale that I had, a big fiber festival I was doing, and so I wanted all the bats to be very similar and uniform in color. So I did end up carding this a total of 3 times, but it kind of broke my heart because this first pass was just so beautiful. I wanted to keep it like this, and I think that I will make future bats that are less blended because this is just absolutely gorgeous, and I want to spin one that has only been through the carder once. Anyway, as you can probably tell, this takes a long time to do, and I didn't speed anything up today because I want you to get a feel of how I actually do this, so that if you've never carded and you get a drum carder and you start carding, you'll have an idea of how it's actually supposed to go. The little brush I was just using is a dog grooming brush, and I use it to pack down the fiber onto the drum so I can put as much on as possible. If you don't pack it down, push the wool down into the tines, it kind of floats on top a lot and you don't get as much fiber on your drum carder. So I like to pack it down so I can fit as much on there as possible. The little pointy stick that I use to break the bat is called a doffer, and I'm being incredibly careful as I slide it between the tines. It can damage or break the tines, and so it is not recommended to use this tool the way I'm using it. It is better to use your dog brush to scrape the fibers off the drum or use a porcupine quill. But regardless, I am being very careful when I slide that tool across the drum. Here you can see I've got all of my bats carded one time, and I am laying them out to see how many I've got, so I know how many pieces to divide each one into, and there's just too many, so I take about half of them and set them aside, and I work on half at a time. So I work on about 9 bats at a time, and I divide each one into 8 strips. The first pass on the drum carder, I don't get as much fiber on the carder as I do on the second and third passes. It's easier to put more on after it's already been carded. So I tend to take the 9 bats, 9.5, however many, and go ahead and divide them into 8 sections. And then each bat after that will have a piece from each of these. So instead of being bat number 1 is all bat number 1 on the second carding. On the second carding, bat number 1 is a piece of 1, 2, 3, 4, piece of everybody. So at this point, all I'm doing is breaking the bats into 8 sections and laying them out in a way that they won't get tangled up and messed up. Now, sometimes it's hard to tell if you've grabbed a whole piece or a half a piece, because sometimes bats don't want to hold together very well, and that can be a little bit of a problem later on, but it's okay. We have one more round of carding to do after this to fix any mistakes, so not a big deal. Now here I speed this up because, it's just kind of boring, but you get the idea of what I'm doing. Collecting piles of bats and setting them aside. So all I have to do is grab one pile, card it, grab the next pile, and card it. This is how I work when I'm doing a ton of carding in one day, or if I'm carding large batches. So I try to make sure I stay as organized as possible. And there's the last one. Now it's time to get the drum carder out and start carding. And we're back to real life speed. You hear I just open up a strip and put it through the carder. I try not to let my strips be terribly thick or the drum doesn't want to turn. There's only so much space in between the small drum and the big drum, and that determines how much fiber you can put through. And I have it set to where they're just barely, the tines on the drums are just barely not touching. You can put a piece of paper, printer paper, in between and it fits down in there, but so they're pretty close together. You don't want the tines brushing each other. That's going to cause damage and not do the greatest job carding. And you don't want to damage the expensive tool that you invested in. So don't let your tines brush against each other. You'll hear it if they are. And if the liquor in or the big drum gets crooked, it'll be closer to one side than the other. And then as you're carding, your fibers will pull in awkwardly instead of evenly. Been there, done that. So if you're having trouble with your bats feeding in or your fibers feeding in evenly, it can be that you didn't prepare your fiber very thoroughly, so it's thicker on one side than the other, or it could be that your drums are not evenly spaced. You can see on the drum that the colors are already beginning to really blend together, and it's still pretty, it's still nice. It doesn't have that satisfaction of color differentiation that the first round of carding did. So, it's also easier to take the bat off the drum carder after the second and third passes. The fibers just come off a lot easier as they're more aligned, and they don't cling to the tines on the drum carder as much. I usually don't need to run the doffer through. Again, I'm being very careful. It doesn't look like it, but I am being very gentle with that doffer, so I don't damage the carding cloth on my drum carder. So I'm going to show you now the difference between one time through the carder, which looks a bit messy, you can see, and this one is much smoother. The colors are also more blended. And then this is sped up because it's just repetitive, and I am throwing these little bundles onto the couch, which is on the right hand side of your screen off camera. So that's why it looks kind of weird. I'm just literally tossing them. But so what I do is I weigh out the bats into 1 ounce sections, and it doesn't matter if you're taking 1 ounce from one bat and 1 ounce from another bat, or if you're taking them from the same bat. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to make sure that each of my bats would be 2 ounces when it's finally done, and to hopefully do a little bit more blending. That's what it looks like, the pile on the couch. But to hopefully make the blending go a little more uniform across all the bats, I just mix them all up and grab randomly the 1 ounce bats. That way it's fairly uniform. It's not 100%, and my weighing is not 100%. So some bats are ever so slightly above an ounce, or 2 ounces rather, but not much. And this way, I have a bunch of bats. I think I had 14. I may have had more than that, but they all are the exact same weight and the same color and the same level of prep. They are all incredibly well prepared and easy to spin or easy to work with. So this round goes pretty fast. I like to divide each 1 ounce section into 3 strips, although sometimes it's already in strips because I had to peel a piece off or add a little slim piece to get it to the right weight. But regardless, it does not take long to do this third carding, and it goes very, very smoothly. Sometimes I will draft the strip lengthwise a little bit before opening it up flat. That just makes it easier to manage all of that fiber, because some of these strips are kind of fat, and this fiber is so fluffy and wonderful to work with. But anyway, that's the end of how I make these bats. So after this, I just package them up, which if you want to see that, go check out my Festival Prep Week 4 vlog. Thanks so much for hanging out with me while I card up a mess of bats. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys!